You know that moment when you wake up in the morning, reach for something without even thinking, and feel completely normal? What if I told you that one small, everyday habit, something millions of people do without a second thought, has been quietly linked to heart attacks and strokes, even happening during sleep? And the scariest part is, most people who do it have no idea they're putting their lives at risk. I need you to stay with me on this, because what you're about to hear could genuinely save your life, or the life of someone you care about. There was a man, healthy, active, not the type anyone would worry about. He had a normal routine, ate what most would consider fine, and didn't think he was at risk. One night, he went to bed just like any other night. No warning signs, no dramatic symptoms, just sleep. And then, he never woke up. The cause? A sudden cardiac event, linked to a habit he had been repeating every single day. Now, before you panic, I want to be clear. This isn't about fear. This is about awareness. Because once you understand what's happening inside your body, you'll realize how easy it is to avoid this danger. Let's talk about one of the biggest silent triggers, going to bed with your body in a stressed, overloaded state, especially after late-night habits like heavy eating, excessive screen time, stimulants, or poor sleep positioning. Think about this. Your body is designed to rest, repair, and reset while you sleep. Your heart rate slows down, your blood pressure should drop, your brain begins its overnight maintenance. But when you overload your system before sleep, you're basically forcing your body to fight instead of recover. One of the most common mistakes people make is eating heavy meals right before going to bed. It seems harmless, right? You're hungry, you eat, you sleep. But inside your body, something very different is happening. Your digestive system kicks into overdrive. Blood flow is redirected to your stomach. Your heart has to work harder. Your blood pressure can spike. And instead of resting, your body is working overtime. Now imagine this happening night after night. The strain builds, the risk increases. And for some people, especially those with underlying conditions, they never see the warning signs until it's too late. Another major factor is sleep deprivation. People underestimate how dangerous it is. Staying up late scrolling, watching videos, or working may feel normal, but your body doesn't see it that way. When you don't get enough sleep, your stress hormones stay elevated, your heart rate stays higher, your blood vessels don't get the relaxation they need. Over time, this creates the perfect environment for serious cardiovascular problems. And then there's something even more subtle, sleep position. Most people don't think twice about how they sleep, but certain positions, especially for people with breathing issues or undiagnosed sleep apnea, can restrict airflow. When your breathing is interrupted during sleep, your oxygen levels drop, your body panics, your heart rate spikes suddenly, your blood pressure shoots up, and this cycle can repeat dozens or even hundreds of times in a single night. That constant stress on your cardiovascular system, it's dangerous. It's exhausting your heart while you think you're resting. Let's not forget stimulants. Caffeine late in the day, nicotine, even certain energy drinks. These can linger in your system longer than you think. You may fall asleep, but your body isn't fully relaxed. Your heart remains more active than it should be. And that hidden tension can increase your risk of nighttime cardiac events. Now here's where it gets even more real. Many people who experience heart attacks or strokes during sleep had warning signs, but they were easy to ignore. Mild chest discomfort, slight dizziness, occasional shortness of breath, fatigue that felt like just being tired. These symptoms often get brushed off as normal life, stress, work, age, but your body doesn't send signals for no reason. The problem is, we've become so used to ignoring these signals that we don't act until something serious happens. So what should you actually do? First, give your body time to wind down before sleep. Try to avoid heavy meals at least 2 to 3 hours before bedtime. Let your digestive system relax so your heart can too. Second, protect your sleep. Aim for consistent, quality rest. Not just hours in bed, but real, uninterrupted sleep. That means reducing screen time before bed, creating a calm environment, and sticking to a routine. Third, pay attention to your breathing. If you snore heavily, wake up gasping, or feel exhausted even after sleeping, don't ignore it. These could be signs of sleep apnea, and it's more common and more dangerous than people think. Fourth, be mindful of stimulants. Cut off caffeine earlier in the day. Avoid nicotine and energy drinks, especially in the evening. Give your body a chance to fully relax. And most importantly, listen to your body. If something feels off, don't wait. Even small symptoms can be early warnings. Because here's the truth. Most of these tragic cases are not completely random. They are often the result of patterns, habits repeated over time, that slowly push the body toward a breaking point. And the scary part is, those habits feel normal. That's why this matters so much. You don't need to live in fear, but you do need to be aware, because awareness gives you control. It gives you the power to make small changes that can have a huge impact. Think about it. Something as simple as adjusting when you eat, how you sleep, and how you manage stress could significantly reduce your risk. That's not complicated, but it is important. And if you take one thing from this, let it be this. Don't ignore the small things, the quiet habits, the routines you repeat every day without thinking, because sometimes it's not the big dramatic events that put us in danger, it's the little things we never question. So tonight, before you go to bed, pause for a moment. Think about your routine. Ask yourself, am I giving my body the rest it needs? Or am I unknowingly putting it under stress? Because the difference between those two could be everything. Stay aware, stay safe, and take care of your heart. Because it's working for you every second, even when you're asleep. Most people don't collapse out of nowhere. That's the part no one really talks about. We hear stories that sound sudden, shocking, almost random. Someone went to sleep and never woke up. Someone felt fine and then suddenly had a heart attack. But when you look closer, in many cases, the body had already been sending signals, quiet signals, easy to ignore signals, signals that didn't seem serious at the time, and that's exactly why they get missed. It often starts with something so small you brush it off without thinking. A slight discomfort in the chest, not sharp, not unbearable, just a strange pressure that comes and goes. You might feel it while walking, or after eating, or even while lying down at night. You tell yourself it's probably gas, or stress, or just fatigue. You don't stop your routine, you don't get it checked, you move on. Then there's fatigue, not the normal kind where you had a long day and feel tired. This is different. It lingers. You wake up feeling like you didn't sleep at all. Your energy feels drained even after doing simple tasks. Climbing stairs feels heavier than usual. But again, life is busy. People are used to being tired. So this becomes normal. It gets ignored. Shortness of breath is another one. It can be subtle. You're walking the same distance you always do, but now you find yourself breathing a little harder. You might need to pause for a moment. You might feel slightly uncomfortable when lying flat, like your breathing isn't as smooth as it should be. Instead of seeing it as a warning, you tell yourself you're just out of shape, or maybe the weather is affecting you. Then come the moments of dizziness, brief, almost forgettable. You stand up and feel a little lightheaded. You move too quickly and your vision slightly fades for a second. It passes quickly, so it doesn't feel important. But your body is telling you something about your circulation, about how your heart and blood vessels are functioning under pressure. There's also that unusual feeling of tightness, not always in the chest, sometimes in the shoulders, the neck, the jaw, or even the upper back. This is one of the most misunderstood signals. People expect heart-related pain to be dramatic and obvious, but often it isn't. It can feel like a dull ache, a pressure, or even stiffness. You might think you slept in a bad position, or maybe you strained a muscle. So again, you ignore it. Some people experience a strange sense of anxiety that seems to come out of nowhere, not tied to any clear reason, a feeling of unease, like something isn't right, but you can't explain why. This can happen especially at night. You might feel restless, unable to get comfortable, your mind unsettled. What many don't realize is that the body and heart are deeply connected to the nervous system, and sometimes this unexplained anxiety is actually a physical signal, not just a mental one. Sweating is another overlooked sign, not from heat, not from exercise, but sudden, unusual sweating, especially at night or during moments of rest. You might wake up feeling damp even when the room isn't hot. It feels strange, but again, it's easy to dismiss. Maybe it's just the blanket, maybe it's the weather, and then there's the issue of sleep itself. People start noticing they're not sleeping as deeply. They wake up multiple times during the night. They feel uncomfortable lying down. Some might even feel a subtle pressure in the chest when they try to relax. Instead of connecting this to their heart or circulation, they blame stress, screens, or daily worries. The problem is not just the presence of these signs. It's how easily they blend into everyday life. Each one, on its own, doesn't seem alarming, But together, they create a pattern that many people fail to recognize until it becomes something serious. One of the biggest reasons these warning signs are ignored is because they don't match what people expect a heart attack or stroke to feel like. Movies and dramatic stories have created an image of sudden, intense pain, immediate collapse, something impossible to miss. But real life is often quieter, slower, more subtle. In reality, the body often gives multiple chances. It sends signals in advance, trying to get your attention. But those signals require awareness. They require you to pause and listen, something many people don't do in a fast-paced life. There's also denial. It's uncomfortable to think something could be wrong with your heart or brain, so the mind looks for easier explanations. It tells you it's nothing serious. It convinces you to wait, to see if it goes away, and sometimes it does go away temporarily. That's what makes it even more dangerous. Another factor is routine. When something becomes part of your daily experience, it stops feeling unusual. If you feel slightly out of breath every day, it becomes your new normal. If you're always tired, you stop questioning it. If you occasionally feel discomfort, you adapt to it. Over time, these warning signs lose their urgency in your mind, even though they're becoming more serious in your body. Nighttime is particularly risky. When you lie down, your body shifts into a different state. Blood flow changes, heart rate slows. But if there's an underlying issue, this transition can trigger problems. That's why some people experience their worst symptoms at night. They might feel discomfort when lying down or wake up suddenly with a strange sensation. Instead of seeing this as a warning, they try to adjust their position, drink some water, and go back to sleep. There's also the issue of overconfidence. People who consider themselves healthy often believe they're not at risk. They think heart attacks and strokes only happen to older individuals or to those with obvious health problems. But the reality is more complex. Risk doesn't always look the way people expect, and warning signs don't always appear dramatically. Even younger individuals can experience early signals, especially if their lifestyle includes stress, poor sleep, unhealthy eating, or lack of physical activity. But because they feel too young to worry, they ignore the signs even more easily. Another critical point is how symptoms can differ between individuals. Not everyone experiences the same warning signs. Some may have chest discomfort, while others may not. Some may feel fatigue as the main symptom. Others may notice breathing changes. This variation makes it harder for people to recognize what's happening, especially if they're expecting a specific type of symptom. And then there's the timing. Warning signs don't always appear all at once. They can come and go over days, weeks, or even months. This intermittent nature makes them easier to dismiss. If something isn't constant, it doesn't feel urgent. But that doesn't mean it's harmless. The body doesn't operate randomly. When something is off, there's a reason. Circulation may be affected. Blood vessels may be under strain. The heart may be working harder than it should. These processes don't always create loud symptoms, but they do create signals. Ignoring these signals allows the underlying problem to progress. What could have been managed early becomes more serious. What could have been prevented becomes harder to stop. There's also a psychological aspect. People don't like to interrupt their routine. Going to a doctor, getting checked, changing habits, it all requires effort. It's easier to wait, to hope it's nothing, to continue with daily life. But that delay can be costly. Sometimes, the warning signs become more noticeable right before a major event. Symptoms may intensify slightly. Discomfort may last longer. Breathing may feel more difficult. But even then, people often wait, thinking it will pass like before. In many cases, the final event, the heart attack or stroke, feels sudden only because the earlier signs were ignored or misunderstood. The body had already been struggling. The system had already been under pressure. The final moment is just the point where it can no longer compensate. This is why awareness matters so much. Not fear, but awareness. Understanding that your body communicates with you, that small changes in how you feel can have meaning, that patterns matter more than isolated moments. It's not about overreacting to every minor sensation. It's about noticing when something changes, when something feels different from your normal, when symptoms repeat or gradually worsen. It's about taking those signals seriously enough to pause and consider what your body might be telling you, because the difference between noticing and ignoring can be life-changing. The body rarely jumps straight to a crisis without any indication. It usually whispers before it shouts. But those whispers are easy to miss in a noisy, busy world where everything competes for attention. And that's where the real danger lies, not in the sudden event itself, but in the quiet signals that came before it and were never truly heard. Most people think heart attacks and strokes just happen out of nowhere, like some sudden, random event. But the truth is, your body usually gives you warning signs, signals that something isn't right, long before the actual crisis. The problem is, these signs are often quiet, subtle, and easy to ignore. They don't feel dramatic, and that's exactly why so many people overlook them, thinking they're normal, unimportant, or just part of life. It usually starts with something small. Maybe it's a slight pressure or discomfort in your chest. Not painful enough to stop what you're doing, just a dull ache or tightness. You might notice it after walking upstairs or carrying groceries, or sometimes even when you're lying down at night. Most people write it off, thinking, it's probably gas, or I just overdid it at the gym, or even, I'm stressed. But this discomfort can actually be a sign that your heart is struggling to get enough oxygen. Your arteries may be narrowing without you realizing it, and your heart is trying to compensate. Fatigue is another one that's easy to dismiss. Not the tiredness from a long day, but a kind that lingers, one that doesn't go away with a good night's sleep. You wake up feeling heavy, groggy, and drained. Simple activities, like climbing a few steps, walking short distances, or doing light chores, suddenly feel exhausting. It's subtle, and because the world tells us to push through tiredness, we often do. We assume we're just out of shape, stressed, or overworked. But this lingering fatigue can be an early indicator that your heart is under stress, working harder than it should to keep your body functioning. Shortness of breath is another warning sign people often miss. Maybe it happens while walking your usual route or while performing simple household tasks. You notice you have to pause, or your breathing feels a little more labored than usual. Some people experience it when lying down, feeling like their lungs aren't getting enough air. Again, it's easy to ignore. You might blame it on aging, poor fitness, or a cold, without realizing it's your heart or circulation signaling that something is wrong. Then, there's dizziness. Brief moments where your vision fades, or you feel lightheaded when you stand up too quickly. These episodes pass quickly, so we dismiss them as nothing important. But in reality, these are signs your circulation may be struggling. Blood pressure fluctuations or blockages in arteries can temporarily reduce blood flow to your brain, creating these dizzy spells. They are your body's way of telling you that something isn't functioning properly. Pain or tightness isn't always in the chest. Often, people experience it in the shoulders, neck, jaw, or upper back. This is one of the most misunderstood warning signs, because most people expect heart-related pain to be dramatic, severe, and centered in the chest. These other areas are often overlooked. A dull ache in your jaw or shoulder can actually be related to reduced blood flow to the heart. People think it's just muscle tension or a bad sleeping position, so they ignore it. Some people also notice a sudden, unexplained feeling of anxiety, especially at night. Not linked to stress or worry, but a deep sense of unease, restlessness, or an unsettled mind. This can actually be a physiological response. The heart and nervous system are deeply connected. When your heart is struggling, your body can signal it through anxiety or restlessness. Many people write it off as mental stress, but sometimes it's your body trying to get your attention. Night sweats are another subtle warning sign. Waking up damp, even when the room isn't hot, or sweating during periods of rest can indicate that your body is under stress. Many people dismiss it, blaming the blanket or the weather, but unusual sweating, especially when combined with other symptoms, can be a signal of heart trouble. Even sleep changes can indicate risk. Waking frequently, struggling to breathe comfortably, or feeling pressure in the chest when lying down may all be early warnings. People often blame this on stress, screens, or bad sleep habits, but it can also be a sign that your heart and circulation are under strain. The problem is that all these signs blend into daily life. Individually, each one might seem insignificant, but together they create a pattern, one that, if ignored, can lead to severe events like heart attacks or strokes. The danger is compounded by the fact that symptoms vary from person to person. One person may only feel fatigue, another may experience chest tightness, and yet another might notice shortness of breath or dizziness. This makes it harder to recognize the risk, especially if you're expecting dramatic symptoms like those you see in movies. Timing also plays a role. Warning signs often appear intermittently, on some days stronger, on other days weaker, and sometimes disappearing entirely. This inconsistent nature makes people think nothing is wrong. It's fine today, maybe it was nothing yesterday, they might think, completely missing the bigger pattern forming over weeks or months. Another challenge is denial. Nobody wants to hear that their heart might be in danger. It's uncomfortable to consider, especially if you feel relatively healthy. So the mind invents easier explanations. It's nothing serious, I'll get checked later, it's just stress. And sometimes symptoms do temporarily ease, reinforcing the false sense of security. But these are just temporary pauses. The underlying problem doesn't go away, and ignoring it allows it to progress. Lifestyle also contributes. Busy routines, work pressures, poor diet, lack of exercise, and stress all mask warning signs. People normalize discomfort because they're used to pushing through fatigue and ignoring subtle signals. Over time, these warning signs stop feeling urgent, even though they're becoming more dangerous. Nighttime is especially critical. Lying down changes blood flow and heart function. If there's an underlying heart or circulatory issue, this transition can trigger symptoms. Many people experience discomfort, restlessness, or difficulty breathing at night, but dismiss it. That's when the risk becomes higher, because the body is trying to compensate while you're sleeping. Finally, overconfidence is a major factor. Many think heart attacks or strokes happen only to older people or those with obvious health problems. But risk doesn't always look like what you expect. Young people, or those who feel healthy, can still have warning signs. Ignoring them because you feel too healthy is dangerous. Patterns matter more than isolated symptoms. Your body rarely jumps straight to crisis without sending signals. These quiet warnings are whispers, not shouts, and they require attention. Ignoring them can be fatal. The difference between noticing and ignoring these early warning signs can literally be the difference between life and death. Your body is trying to communicate with you. If you listen, you can act before it's too late.